In our last video, we talked about our ecosystem in the backyard and the changes that we could make and might happen in our ecosystem. That's what we've been covering in this unit, is ecosystems and changes throughout and interactions in ecosystems. When we look at our backyard, we have biotic and abiotic factors in the backyard. The tree, biotic factor. The grass that grows in the wintertime, a biotic factor. These leaves, are they a biotic or an abiotic factor? And what interaction and what role do they play in the ecosystem? If we zoom in here, underneath the tree, we look where these dead leaves have gathered. As I pull these leaves back, you start to see different living things. The leaves are creating habitat and a tiny ecosystem for the items that live there. All areas and ecosystems are chock full of interactions that happen like that. As we look around our yard, we have a lot of different factors, biotic and abiotic, that change the ecosystem in the yard. Underneath these boards, boards are clearly an abiotic factor of the ecosystem back here. They're not alive. However, they do play a crucial role in this particular ecosystem. I am certain underneath here is all kinds of living animals. But what's not living under these boards is the grass. It doesn't look the same as what we see outside of the boards. This grass under here is struggling for life. So the boards are playing a role in the ecosystem. Is it a positive role or a negative role? It's a little bit of both. The way an ecosystem works is one thing that changes affects other things in the ecosystem. A positive and a negative. And that's the way most things play out. Here you'll see our back patio. We poured a concrete patio, me and Jack. It was nice. We could sit out here and enjoy it. We worked hard on it. It's a great addition to our home. But when we poured the patio, we changed the ecosystem back here. Used to, this entire area was covered with grass and dirt. As the rain fell from the roof down the back of the house and landed on this grass and dirt, it soaked in here. Now, however, with this large concrete patio here, all of the rain that falls runs off of the patio and it is addressed by this part of the ecosystem now. These plants that grow here have had their change in water nearly quadrupled from what they were getting last year at this time. The same for the tree. Suddenly, it receives much more water. The additional water that it receives is because of the loss of the ecosystem towards the house where we had the patio. Biotic and abiotic factors that affect ecosystems. Over on this edge of the house, we have Mr. G's collection of kayaks. That's right, 8 kayaks. As we turn some of the kayaks over, we see that here in front of the kayak, nice green bushy grass and plants. Underneath the kayak, something totally different. This part of the ecosystem, the grass that grows here, well, it's died. So we've changed the ecosystem in what appears to be a negative way. But underneath all of this dead grass and leaves that have gathered here, there's an entire ecosystem of life happening in there. Plants, animals, different kinds of decomposers, all existing because of the abiotic factor that has been added to their ecosystem. So we want to talk about changes and interactions in the ecosystem and the way different things affect each other. If we look down here, we're going to see one of Scout's contributions to our ecosystem back here. Yeah, that's a dog turd. Scout leaves some big ones. But that's how she interacts in this ecosystem. By leaving these turds, she changes the ecosystem by adding fertilizer and nutrients to the soil. It helps the soil and grass grow, and she interacts in a positive way with the ecosystem there. Sometimes Scout likes to dig, and when she does, she digs up plants and trees. We can see here a little bit of Scout's handiwork on the grass. She's killed the grass in this area, but by other contributions she's made, she's given a little and taken away a little from the ecosystem back here. If we changed all of our ecosystem back here, like we did to the patio, what would be the effect? What would be the interaction? We'd eliminate this ecosystem. Did we change anything outside of this ecosystem? Ecosystems are tiny and expanding. We have an entire ecosystem under the tree. We have an entire ecosystem by the kayaks. In fact, we have an entire ecosystem under Scout's dog turd over there. And an entire ecosystem here. Changes to each of those can affect each other. If the insect life grows out of control from under that tree, it can spread to the entire yard and wipe out all the plant life. Or it can change the types of insects that live over under the wood pile. If fire ants thicken in our yard, will they affect ecosystems outside of our yard? I'm sure that my neighbors would definitely not appreciate my yard being covered with fire ants, as they would spread to their ecosystem. So let's have an imaginary change to our ecosystem and see how it affects things for the good and the negative. Let's imagine that we took our entire ecosystem back here and me and Jack covered the whole thing in concrete. We pour concrete from the house all the way to the fence. What ecosystem would we be affecting? Now, all of the water and the insects and the plant life that lived here, the insects can't live here any longer, and the plant life is clearly gone. The amount of water would be increased, and suddenly we'd find that we'd increased water and plant life out here in the alley. This is the alley that runs behind our house. It runs up and down, and all of these homes drain water from their tiny ecosystems out here into this alley. So when we look down here in the drainage, it's been freshly cut, so it's going to appear to be just dead grass. However, as you can see, this is at least a foot or two of water here in the alley right now. If we increase the amounts of water that ran from our ecosystem, we'd be drastically increasing the amount of water in this drainage. Now, our alleyway, our drainage, would start to become deeper, would start to contain and hold water all the time. This water is the key to life in a lot of ecosystems. In here in particular is one that bugs us and the family. This water often holds mosquito larvae, and those mosquitoes will attack us in the backyard at night when we sit on our patio and enjoy it. Fish, insects, frogs, all could start to live in this alley if we increase the amount of water so that this pond, this drainage ditch, could hold water all the time. suddenly it could become much more like a river. As this water runs through the neighborhood, down the alley, it continues to cut a path and erode land and soil along this alley. You can see that already it has begun to change the landscape of this alley. Behind us is a tree growing in the drainage ditch. Those seeds carried from elsewhere. Continual changes to ecosystems uphill from this have the water changing the ecosystem here. As we changed our ecosystem, this drainage ditch would become deeper and start to support more life. We're going to explore further down to the end of the alley, pan down, and see how the changes are affected as we follow this drainage ditch.